Hey everyone. I know I haven't been on YouTube as much lately, and it, uh, pro I'm not going to say I'm like fully back yet. I'm just kind of been busy with some stuff, but I have been following somewhat recently, um, and I noticed that there's been a lot of discussion about ethical philosophy. With Nicotine's video on utilitarianism. I saw Puro did a video on moral relativism. Um, so I guess I'd want to talk a little bit about my views. Now Puro's video on moral relativism kind of struck me, and I meant to kind of make a reply specific to that video, but didn't want to go digging through it. Basically, he struck me as actually being more relativist than I even realized. When he talks about, he seems to talk about relative to the individual. Yeah, that every individual has his own ideas about what's good and what's not, and we kind of just have to debate them. But there's no basis on which we're debating. Um, and he points out that uh, there are things we all agree on that you're not likely to find any person who thinks that murdering people for no reason is justified, and that's true. But I think that that very point seems to undermine the kind of moral relativism he's talking about. I mean, that's why I'm to some extent a moral universalist, which is to say that morality may not be any sort of absolute objective morality, but morality, there is a sort of morality which is universally applicable to the human condition. It is relative to the human condition, but not necessarily relative to individual human preferences. Um, so, what are those universals? I think that utilitarianism strikes on an interesting point with that in noting the pleasure pain principle, basically um, that humans like to experience pleasure and don't like to experience pain, and so we seek to uh, maximize pleasure and minimize pain as much as we can in our own life, and we ought to treat others in the same way. Um, so and obviously there are some logical contradictions that happen if you try to take that principle too far, and it gets too much into situational ethics, which can be problematic. So deontology takes the other route and talks about sort of a morality that always applies the same in every situation. Um, with Kant's categorical imperative. Um, but I think that with deontology, there's for one thing, can it's one thing to say that you should always act the same in the same kind of situation, but it's a kind of abstraction to say that two situations are the same. It's really every situation is unique, and you can apply the same moral principles to different situations and come up with two different results. And also kind of ignores the sort of dialectic of moral principles. That sometimes moral principles conflict with one another, and there's and you have to make a decision about which one applies more, and what are you going to do about it. So yeah, I think there's also the dialectic between utilitarianism and deontology itself, that you need a little bit of both. Um, and what I find really interesting is virtue ethics, mainly because it kind of seems to be an exception to this whole like pleasure pain thing, because both utilitarianism and deontology seem to operate on this whole pleasure pain principle that basically whether you're applying it situationally or universally, what you're trying to do still is minimize pain and maximize pleasure. Whereas with virtue ethics, it becomes not even so much about uh, interaction with other people so much as personal character, and it's not so much about pleasure and pain as it is about greatness and what you ought to strive for. Um, and I kind of like that, because there's a sense of progress in that kind of in that kind of ethics. It's not merely about it's not merely like a formula the way these others are. Um, but in any case, what I like about what Whitehead talked about when he sort of subsumed ethics under aesthetics, he takes this stance kind of similar to utilitarianism, but instead of pleasure and pain, it's about beauty, which I think it's kind of neat if you think about it. For one thing, you think of a composition, a musical composition or work of art. You can have something dissonant in there, which adds to the overall beauty of it. And so that's why some forms of pain and suffering can be good. They can contribute to a larger picture, which is much more beautiful because of it. So yeah, I think that's a neater way of thinking about the whole pleasure pain principle, and I think that also accommodates virtue ethics a lot more, because that way the virtue ethics kind of incorporate this idea of beauty of some transcendent thing to strive for. So yeah, I can that's kind of my take. And that kind of gets me into a view of ethics which becomes less philosophical and more theological. That is, there's the classic categories of the good, the beautiful, and the true. And I see it as these three kind of aspects of God. And obviously, with ethics, we're talking about the good. And I think with each one of those, we experience different manifestations of them in our life, and we experience them in their specificity, but we intuit some universal which is beyond the specific, and that there's something kind of guided by it towards something barely comprehensible to us, but we feel it. We feel the good, which is beyond our merely finite subjective experience of the good. We feel the beautiful in a sense of what is beyond our finite experience of the beautiful. And the same with the true. I mean, science. Science is actually based on is kind of in its quest for the true, is kind of seeking a true, the true beyond our finite experience of the true. So yeah, I kind of that's where I kind of really part ways with Puro, and I think and based on that, it's no coincidence I think that he's an atheist and I'm a theist, because I do have, as much as I think relativism is valuable, and I do get a lot of it, and there are many ways in which I would consider myself a relativist. At the same time, I feel there's something transcendent in all of it. There's something which is beyond our mere sort of finite phenomenological experience. So I guess that's it for now. Peace.